with some of these kids and rub herself on top of them and just tell these kids it's okay, we're just having fun. So it's kind of like, okay, you can't really blame the kid, they don't know better, but when we're in a society where parents are putting their kids on the world stage in these circumstances for money, and she was making money, lots of it. I think it's something wrong here, something really wrong.
So, Moose, I wanted to push back on something you said earlier, where you said blue states are bailing out red states fiscally. And I'm going to give you a counter, because I know where this narrative comes from, and I know like the number of people that really truly believe it. But first and foremost, I would say the nation as a whole is in a federal deficit. So there is no state that is bailing out any of the other states. We're completely operating in a massive deficit. So that right there really does put the nail in the coffin for this argument that blue states are bailing out red states. Because if it were true, no state is actually contributing enough to call it. Most of these blue states are actually running into financial issues, deficits, lack of controls in spending. And generally, when you look at the federal distribution of funds, these can go for a variety of projects. If you're talking about Medicare or following the FMAP principles, yeah, you will see those more in rural states. But then again, that's rural. The concentration of wealth that exists in particular cities, such as New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas, there's a couple others. Those generally will have mixed reviews, because they will have enormous wealth, but they'll have massive taxation programs to actually garner that wealth, while the rest of the state is actually dependent on it. And these blue states often receive, based on projects, they get federal priority because of the wealth generation, such as highways and things along those lines, infrastructure builds. They'll actually receive more foundational money or federal money in terms of it, rather than, say, a Wyoming or a Rhode Island. Well, Rhode Island won't, because right now they're going to try to reinvent shipbuilding. So they'll receive some more influx of capital from the federal government, or at least will add to the deficit to build ships. So I really hate this point of where people try to say the blue states bail out the red, when quite frankly, when you look down on it, maybe you're going to make a case for Medicaid and SNAP, but even that is not necessarily true, because the federal government upholds projects in mostly blue states, California, New York again, that primarily get a lot of projects in there. And then part of the federal dollars go for a lot of other projects that can exist in those, such as mining, military bases, training, some areas that just they need gas, fracking. So like a lot of these other areas that are more rural, they actually contribute a lot, because those blue states, unfortunately, would not necessarily be able to operate at all, because they just don't allow those practices to actually go on.
Yeah, no, wait, I think maybe I misspoke, but one of the stat that I put out was specifically, I think you're talking about, because I just did a quick search too, and I had to use specific language. In the initial search, I said, yeah, it's a mix of blue and red states that get federal aid. What I meant was specifically individual citizens getting SNAP, getting Medicaid, literally just like surviving, get their income relying on the individual's household income, relying on government, not necessarily fracking and states getting help from blue or federal government. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that goes further to like the infrastructure projects at hand. So like if you look at some of the more, and I would go to where I would look at wealth concentration, particularly in cities versus the rural landscape, because then it paints a different picture. Blue states get it because, like the sad part is, majority and Texas and parts of Florida, the majority of the wealth creation or the wealth concentration exists in these 4 primary states. So when you look at it and you start looking at it on a city, then you start saying, all right, wait a minute, maybe this distribution isn't necessarily fair. So for instance, I would point to hospital and medical infrastructure. and the decrease in actual employment in these rural areas, which causes a need for federal assistance because there is no significant development into manufacturing or making another wealth concentration center in these states. So, I mean, it's a bit of a precarious stance. I get why the left often use it, but I don't think it's actually portrayed accurately as how we divvy up federal funds in this country.
It isn't part of the problem, though, that we allow the left to control the narrative about what the role of government ought to be. And so then they frame what the role should be, and then everybody argues about how the government should prioritize those things, and then they fight over spending. If there was a real opposition to the left, like a genuine opposition to the left, it would start with the reframing of what are the rights that the citizens have, and then what is the role of the government that would protect those rights. I think that there's just, to me, when I listen to both parties speak, I hear about people that have expanded they go from negative rights to positive rights. Then they have this I guess misunderstanding of why government was created in the first place. And then they just expand it to do everything in everyone's lives. And until you roll that conversation all the way back and have a conversation about what the role of government is, I think that conservatives are going to get destroyed every turn, because you're allowing the framing to be done on the left, and then you're playing their game. And even if you got your way, you won the battle of who's the least leftist.
Hanson, good to see you. I usually just see you in Gary's room. But Mojo, to that point though, wait. We have how is it exactly that we're allowing the left to control the narrative?
It's very simple. It's they will say things like healthcare is a right, and then the right will then argue about what is the right thing to do at the federal level when it comes to healthcare. I think we should take a pause and just ask the honest question of, why should the federal government do anything in regards to healthcare?
Outside of regulation, I tend to agree with you until we can come up with a formula or at least something to provide for, say, the disabled. And I don't mean disabled because you eat 400 pounds of fudge round. I'm talking about you're blind, you lost both hands, no legs, you have a medical condition or even a mental condition that we can determine as that you are disabled. I also think that a certain age of the elderly, depending on your medical condition, could qualify for that. I don't look at the idea that as soon as you're 65, you are forced on Medicare or an MAO, and you're kind of determined that that's the age in which you know be a product, you don't produce to society, you now become a burden. I think if we actually changed our culture to accept senior citizens or elderly people who definitely can play a pivotal role in many areas of our economy.
Brad,
Roger, you're asking for a cultural wake-up. I don't
you're right,
but as far as medical, I would agree with you. We need to streamline it down, and this would decrease cost.
You're not agreeing with me.
It would expand
You're not agreeing with me. Brad, you're not agreeing with me. You're actually doing exactly what I said that the right does, which is when I say that we should have this conversation about what the role of government should be and perhaps consider that the federal government should stay out of it, you're still talking about streamline and in regards to Medicare. Like, I'm literally talking about why do we have Medicare? Why do we have Social Security? I legitimately don't believe that either of those things should exist for the at the federal government level. I think that if you want to have if you want to have some sort of insurance policy that gives access to more people, okay, figure that out. Why is the government involved? Why are the taxpayers on the hook for this shit? Like, why is it not voluntary? If it's such a good idea, we should fix it, right? If it's such a good idea, there would be people that would put their time, their money, and their effort together to fix this thing. I don't think that people really. I don't think they really care. I think all they want is an easy button. And the easy button for everyone is to just say, we'll put it in the hands of the government, and then we'll have gridlock and arguments, and then the result will be some Frankenstein monster program that we can never get rid of, that's super expensive, super wasteful, and doesn't solve the problem that it's intended to solve. I'm simply saying, instead of playing that game and designing a Frankenstein monster that doesn't solve anything, why don't we just ask the question again, what's the role of government? And again, I know that nobody's ready for that conversation on either side, which is why when I hear leftists argue with people that reject leftist ideas, I say, well, you're not rejecting them staunchly enough. You're not saying that the very idea of having Social Security is a fucking problem. Like, you'll have Republicans that are afraid to talk about it that'll just capitulate and say, we'll share some ideas on how to fix it, because they're afraid of what the revolt might be. I would say, grab some principled ideas and draft a conversation around, here's what getting rid of Social Security would look like long term. I think that if the Republicans don't have the balls to do that, in my opinion, all they are is leftists that are in the slow lane. The Democrats are the leftists that are in the fast lane.
It's true. It's true. They're running the government as if it's a race to the bottom to see who can, implode it faster, and that's the way they spend. 10 billion a day. If we take in 150 billion in tariffs since January of this year, that funds only 15 days of federal government. We're borrowing 2 to 3 trillion a day and spending, or 2 to 3 billion a day and spending 6 to 7 billion a day. It's totally and it's a giant fucking contraption. It's a game. I mean, the way that Trump interacts with Chairman Powell spoke today. I don't know if he lowered rates, but there is a relationship which is rather unnatural between Congress and the Federal Reserve, who is more than willing to do whatever Congress tells them to do. But we spineless Congress people, we have propagandists like AOC who backs Mamdani, Sanders who backs AOC. These people are big spenders. They've never run a pizza shop in their fucking life. They are hypocrites, they are frauds, and they're very dangerous to our overall way of living, our culture, and our future as American people. They are domestic terrorists, in my opinion. They are dangerous to our way of life because they're delusional, sick borrowers and spenders. You don't live your life like that, but Congress wants you to live. They want to live that life for you. It's sick. They are addicted to borrowing and spending, and it never seems to end. So people have to speak up and say, stop borrowing, stop spending. This is not sustainable, and you're wasting it. You're wasting our precious reserves.
So I think what Roger said earlier, I don't think we have courage anymore, guys, in our elected officials. I don't think there's courage at all. I'm going to go back to PMS, power, money, sex. These people have gotten into the blender of using other people's money. They want to spend other people's money versus allowing the 50 independent states, like what Brad said earlier. No states take care of the states. We have 50 independent states. We have 50 independent governments. Unfortunately, they're not even balancing their budget well. And because we've gotten away from everything should be local, close to where the people live, everything should be ran by the cities and by the states themselves, not by the federal government. And right now, like Roger said, I'm going to say it again, this social living, this social security, this social experiment isn't working. Just isn't working.
So, Roger, if I took your stance, right, and I'm running And I believe the only person that could right now in today's environment, if he chose to, I mean, maybe Trump could end Social Security, but I mean, if I ran on that, how bad do you think I lose in an election? With all seriousness, how bad do you think I lose?
I can answer that question if I can.
Well, yeah, but let me answer it my way first, and then I'd love to get your thoughts. You need to plant the seeds that this is a conversation that Americans have to have, and if you're afraid to plant the seeds, then you'll never let the idea grow. And I get it that there's people that will use fear tactics and try to weaponize this conversation against you. I totally get that. The point that needs to be made, though, is that we're doing it their way, and it's about to go broke. 2035, the trust fund is broken, completely emptied, and you'll only be able to fund 71% of the liabilities. We need to be able to speak honestly about that and educate people. The average American that is in support of having Social Security is because they think they're going to get it. If you tell them that we can only fund 71% of the liabilities, oh, and by the way, the Supreme Court has already ruled that this is not a promissory note. There is no guarantee of Social Security. Go look at what the Supreme Court has to say about this. I think what we have to do is we need to have that conversation that you're not guaranteed it, and the politicians have already spent that money. The trust fund will be broke in 2035, and the only ways that they're going to have to fix it is to raise Social Security tax, which is right now at $625. They can raise the limit on the income of what they tax. So essentially, both of those are raising taxes. Both of those are going to be unpopular. You can raise the age in which you collect. They continue to do that, but right now the standard age is 70. You can take it early at 67. You can wait longer and get even more money, but most people don't have that luxury. And then the other thing is you could reduce the benefit that people collect. That's not something that's exciting. But people need to understand, especially the people that beyond 2035, for somebody that's on Social Security now, and let's say they've got 5 years left to live, that's a problem that they kick down the road. And I think that's the thing we need to be honest with, is that the politicians continue to kick this thing down the road, and eventually the people that are going to get saddled with it are the people that have been lied to and led to believe that this is a promise and that there's a guarantee, or that somehow they have recourse if they didn't get paid for it. The truth is, Social Security has always been a Ponzi scheme, and until somebody says that out loud and explains it, whiteboards it, and lets people understand that this is not a political position, this is just transparency. Until we get that kind of real talk, we're all fucked. And we know that the lefties like this, they'd like to expand it. They don't have the money to pay for it, but they'd love to expand it. And you have not a Republican in sight that's got the balls to talk about it, save for maybe Thomas Massey. But he's only going to do that when he's talking to his constituents that like his brand. There's a lot of gutless people that run in Congress, and you got to start the conversation. Because I'll tell you what, eventually the conversation's going to come up, and it's too fucking late after the trust fund is emptied.
Can I get a word in edgewise now?
Oh, you can get it in edgewise. I hope you don't mind me having that right of response to Brad that was asking me the question. But go ahead, Anson, jump in.
You have every right.